All right, we're now going to keep going here. We're going to look at some things here. In 1953, we'll go on to this. 1953, Joseph Stalin dies, and so there's another fight in what's called the Politburo, which is basically like our Congress. And they ultimately decide that the party secretary, the man in charge to take over for Stalin, is this man. His name is Nikita Khrushchev. And I know that last name is weird, but if you just kind of sound it out, it makes sense. It's Khrushchev. Now, Nikita Khrushchev gets up there, and there's a copy of it in there. He gives a speech called Stalin's Crimes. And this is the case of hearing what you want to hear and not actually hearing the truth. Okay? Now, in Stalin's Crimes, he announces a plan that he calls de-Stalinization. This is an old statue of Stalin. You can tell the head's been taken off the boot, the star. And he basically wanted every image or every thought of Stalin in the Soviet Union removed. Now, the United States took this as, hey, Khrushchev doesn't want communism. And so here's what we did. We actually owned a radio station called Radio Free Europe. And we broadcast Khrushchev's speech to all of what is called the Eastern Bloc. Remember I showed you earlier, that was the little countries that are there, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, all these things, right? And so in 1955, we're thinking everybody's great. They're going to get rid of Stalin. Now, this is not what Khrushchev intended. Khrushchev simply wants communism. He thinks that Stalin developed what is called a cult of personality. Cult of personality has existed with Benito Mussolini. It existed with Hitler. And it's basically where in a cult you worship somebody. In this case, you were worshiping the personality of that person, and you kind of lose touch with what's real. In Nazism, of course, the figure was Hitler, and Hitler became larger than life. In Italy, it was Mussolini, and people worship Mussolini. And in the Soviet Union, of course, it's Stalin. And so that's what Khrushchev means. He means, let's cut out all this kind of vain stuff and get back to the real communism as it's supposed to be, not get rid of communism. Now, in this, we have two crises, all right? We have a crisis in Poland, and we have a crisis in Hungary in 1956. And they're dealt with in different manners. Now, they both kind of start out the same. In Poland, it was a workers' strike. The union, seen here, they walk off and they hold a strike, and they said, hey, we don't like this. Now, Khrushchev will send in some people to go and negotiate with the Polish, and everything is fine. Now, later that year, over in Hungary, I guess they got hungry, I don't know, but pancakes, I don't know. In Hungary, they tried the similar thing, walked off. Now, in this case, you can see here the Soviet Union rolled in with a tank. And so they rolled in a lot more aggressive here in Hungary than they did in Poland. Why? Well, I guess in Poland, they figured it's one-time deal. Now, in Hungary, they've got to set an example. Otherwise, all these Eastern Bloc countries, possibly China, North Korea, could rebel, and they don't want that, basically, okay? Now, some other things that come out of this, and I'll end this video before I go into the next one. Two men write very important books to expose. Remember, Stalin had a complete control. He was a dictator. Khrushchev maybe isn't a dictator so much. But Stalin controlled what people read, what they saw, what they heard, everything. And so these two men kind of wrote novels to get that out. The first man is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He was a member of the Gulag. This is him right here, and he's got his number. And he wrote a book that is called A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. In this book, Ivan, who's a code name for him because he can't write his own name for fear he'll probably die, describes what it is like in the Gulag of Siberia. And so people got to look into these work camps that Stalin had and how horrible they were. The next man, Boris Pasternak, wrote, ladies, you love those chick flicks, right? Twilight, whatever it could be, ooh. So the first really big chick flick book, whatever, was written by Boris Pasternak, really, and it's called Dr. Zhivago. In Dr. Zhivago, he is a Russian doctor, and he's sent on to these horrible places, and he's not allowed to practice medicine as he's supposed to, but rather Stalin tells him. And so in that, he has the ethical debate of, do I do what I know is right, or do I do what is not going to get me killed. And so these are two interesting books. I'm not going to make you read them all because Dr. Zhivago is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 pages. So, yikes. Not now, okay? Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how the United States kind of upped the ante, how we moved from containment and went into something else. Okay?